Silence has always carried a mysterious weight, a force that cannot be explained through noise or chatter. In a world where voices compete to be louder, faster, and more persuasive, silence becomes a form of rebellion, a hidden strength that few understand. Most people mistake quietness for weakness, but those who truly grasp the power of silence know it is one of the strongest tools a human being can wield. A quiet person does not need to announce their worth. They don't scream for validation or fight for unnecessary attention, because their very presence commands respect without the desperation of noise. Silence gives room for clarity, for thought, for observation. It allows one to see what the noisy world misses. And in that silence lies unshakable power, the kind of power that builds empires, changes lives, and leaves marks on history without ever shouting a word. Those who live in silence are never truly silent. Their stillness speaks louder than words could ever convey. Their energy radiates a calmness that unsettles the arrogant and comforts the wise. Think of the greatest thinkers, leaders, and warriors of history, they were never reckless with words. They valued the pause, the restraint, the moment of listening before acting. The quiet man is underestimated until his action reveals the depth of his mind, and by then, his strength becomes undeniable. Silence is not emptiness, it is concentration, focus, and the refusal to waste life's energy on trivial noise. The loud may impress for a moment, but the silent dominate for a lifetime, because their power is not in volume but in precision. Every word they choose becomes deliberate, meaningful, unforgettable. When you embrace silence, you detach from the chaos of the crowd. You stop being enslaved by the need to be heard, liked, or praised. Instead, you develop the courage to be unseen yet unshaken. The world teaches us to speak more, post more, show more, but the quiet person chooses to conserve energy, to protect their inner world, and to strike only when it matters. This is why silence intimidates people, it creates mystery, it denies access, and it forces others to wonder what you know that they don't. And in that curiosity, they begin to respect you, sometimes even fear you, without you saying a word. Silence is power because it shifts control. He who talks least controls most. He who observes most sees what others are blind to. And he who remains quiet in moments of noise rises above the weak, the restless, and the insecure. The loudest person in the room often carries the weakest mind. They rely on noise to mask their insecurities, to convince others of strength they don't actually possess. But the quiet person doesn't need such illusions. They are secure in themselves, so secure that they can sit still, observe, and let the silence speak for them. This is why silence is mistaken for shyness. It is not shyness, it is strategy. It is not withdrawal, it is wisdom. A quiet person isn't retreating from the world, they are gathering energy, studying patterns, calculating movements. While the noisy ones scatter their strength in all directions, the silent ones store it like fire, waiting for the exact moment to unleash it. And when they finally do, the impact is devastatingly effective, because it is sharp, concentrated, and backed by the full force of patience. There is an ancient truth: silence terrifies the arrogant. The insecure thrive in chaos and chatter, but when met with silence, they feel their illusions crumble. A quiet man's refusal to react immediately unnerves the opponent. Imagine a heated argument where one person shouts, screams, throws words like knives, but the other stands calmly, watching with steady eyes, saying nothing. Who really holds the power? Not the one screaming, but the one who can withstand the storm without bending. Silence makes others expose themselves. It reveals who is strong and who is desperate. The quiet person never needs to announce victory, they let the noisy ones defeat themselves with their own recklessness. This is the paradox of silence: it is both shield and sword, protection and attack, patience and dominance. To master silence is to master presence. People who cannot endure silence are enslaved by distraction. They cannot sit with their own thoughts, so they fill every moment with chatter, entertainment, or pointless arguments. But the quiet person becomes comfortable in the void. They use silence as a training ground for the mind, a forge where strength is built. It is in silence that ideas are born, that self-awareness grows, that resilience is shaped. The world teaches us to consume endlessly, words, noise, opinions, validations, but the silent soul filters it all, absorbing only what is essential. And because of that discipline, when they finally speak, their words cut deeper, heal stronger, inspire greater. Their silence prepares them for the rare moments when sound must be used, and those moments carry the weight of destiny. True silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of control. It is the discipline to resist the urge to fill the air with unnecessary words, the patience to listen before responding, the wisdom to wait until speaking has real purpose. Quiet people are not silent because they lack words, they are silent because they respect the weight of words. They know that speech is power, and power wasted carelessly loses its force. So they sharpen their silence like a blade, keeping it ready, using it sparingly, and delivering it only when it can make the deepest cut. This is why the quiet are often remembered more than the loud. Their words echo because they are rare, deliberate, and anchored in depth. Noise fades quickly, but silence leaves an imprint on the soul. Silence also creates space for listening, and listening is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. Most people talk not to communicate, but to dominate. They want to be heard more than they want to understand. The quiet person flips this equation, they listen more than they speak, and in listening, they collect wisdom, knowledge, and insights that others miss. While the noisy ones drown in their own words, the quiet ones gather information, observe emotions, and detect truths hidden between lines. This ability makes them powerful in ways unseen. They can walk into a room and sense the undercurrents others ignore. They can hear what is not said, notice the tremor in a voice, the hesitation in a word, the contradiction in a story. And because they see deeper, they can act with precision, while others stumble blindly. The power of silence extends beyond observation, it builds endurance. To remain quiet when provoked requires strength of character. To stay calm when challenged requires mastery over the self. Anyone can shout back, anyone can argue, anyone can waste energy in noise, but it takes a warrior's discipline to withhold, to choose the higher ground, to respond only when necessary. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint. And restraint is the foundation of power. A man who cannot control his tongue cannot control his destiny. A woman who cannot master her emotions will forever be ruled by them. But the quiet soul who knows when to speak and when to withhold holds the key to influence, respect, and inner peace. Silence is not just strength in dealing with others, it is also the ultimate mirror of the self. When a person embraces silence, they are forced to confront their own thoughts without distraction. This is terrifying for many, because silence reveals the truth. It strips away illusions and confronts you with who you really are. But the quiet person welcomes this confrontation. They use silence as a forge, a place where weaknesses are exposed and burned away, where discipline is strengthened, where vision becomes clear. In silence, they ask the questions others avoid: who am I? What do I want? What is worth my energy? And in finding these answers, they build an inner foundation so strong that no external chaos can shake it. This is why quiet people appear unmovable, unshaken even when the world crumbles. They have already wrestled with themselves in silence, and they have come out victorious. Silence also creates presence. There are people who enter a room and instantly draw attention, not because they shout, not because they demand, but because their silence radiates authority. The quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything is magnetic. People lean in, curious about what they think, waiting for what they might say. This is the paradox: the less you speak, the more weight your words carry when you do. A single sentence from a quiet person can silence an entire room, not because of volume, but because of credibility. The loud fight for attention, but the silent attract it naturally. Authority is not built on noise, it is built on mastery of self, and silence is the language of mastery. Even in battle, whether it is war, business, or personal struggle, the quiet person often wins. Why? Because silence conceals strategy. Noise reveals desperation, but silence hides intent. The loud expose their plans, their emotions, their weaknesses through endless words, but the silent guard their thoughts like treasure. They act when the time is right, striking with precision while others waste themselves in restless chatter. Think of the most dangerous predators in the wild, they do not roar before they hunt. They stalk in silence, they move with patience, they wait for the perfect moment to strike. That is the essence of true strength, not to be restless, but to be patient. Not to announce power, but to demonstrate it in silence when it matters most. The world often teaches us that success belongs to the loud, to those who shout their way to the top, to those who flood the stage with endless words. But history proves otherwise. The greatest leaders were often people of few words. They didn't waste breath convincing others, they embodied strength, and their silence demanded respect. True influence does not need to scream, it resonates quietly but deeply, like a stone dropped in water that creates ripples far beyond its size. Quiet people understand this principle. They are not in a race to be seen or heard. They are in a pursuit of impact, and impact does not require noise, it requires depth, timing, and precision. Silence trains them for that. When they finally act, when they finally speak, the world stops to listen because they have mastered the art of restraint. Silence is also a form of resistance. In a society addicted to noise, social media chatter, constant opinions, endless arguments, choosing silence is revolutionary. It is saying, I refuse to be consumed by this chaos. I will not dilute my energy. I will protect my mind. This resistance gives quiet people an edge, because while the crowd exhausts itself, they preserve clarity. While the world burns its energy on meaningless noise, they save theirs for decisive action. And that is why silence is feared. People don't fear those who shout, they fear those who wait. They fear the still one who watches, who calculates, who doesn't react. Because silence is unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. The quiet cannot be read, cannot be controlled, cannot be underestimated, and that makes them dangerous in the eyes of the restless. But perhaps the greatest power of silence is that it connects us to truth. Beyond the noise of the world lies wisdom that can only be heard in stillness. Quiet people have the gift of tuning into that wisdom. They know that life is not about being the loudest, but about being the most grounded, the most aware, the most resilient. Silence gives them access to this higher ground. It is in silence that clarity speaks, that the soul whispers, that strength reveals itself. And this is the ultimate secret, the quiet are not weak. They are the ones who have discovered a strength deeper than sound, a power that cannot be taken, a force that outlasts all noise. They are the living proof that silence is not absence, it is presence. It is not weakness, it is strength. And those who master it, master themselves, and in mastering themselves, they master the world. If this message has stirred something inside you, if it reminded you that silence is not weakness but strength, then I ask you, don't let this moment fade. Don't just nod and move on. Take action. Join this journey with me. Subscribe, not for me, but for yourself, for the part of you that refuses to be drowned in noise, for the warrior within you who knows that true power is built in stillness. Every video here is a weapon for your mind, a reminder of the strength you already carry but may have forgotten. By subscribing, you're making a choice to rise above distraction, above weakness, above chaos. You're declaring that you are ready to live with clarity, with purpose, with power. So if you feel that spark burning in your chest right now, don't hesitate. Hit that button. Let this be the moment you silence the world and amplify your soul.